Boys, we are in this. Let's get after it. We're live, boys. We are live, and we got music this week. So all 9 people that are already here, you're welcome. We tried to make it not as boring as possible to wait for us to get on. Boys, first of all, how was the week? Because Ryan always asks me how my weekend was, and I never get to ask anybody. So how was the week, fellas?
Jackson, you got to go first with this, man. We know you do a lot.
What'd you get up to
college
this week, man?
Back at college this week, I feel like I've driven about 2,000 miles this summer. It's been a whole lot of driving. But back at college for good. Feels good to be back. About to start up fall season of practicing nonstop and me watching 1,000 bullpens a week. So, let's go.
You know what, man?
I'm jealous.
I'll tell you what. It's way better than being on meetings and reading emails. So,
Yes.
you win.
Flex, thank you so much for summarizing my week. I appreciate that.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, listen. I mean, that was your week. It was a week. It was definitely a week in baseball. A lot of different things happened. We're gonna get into it, but I'll start with this, fellas. And before we get into the fastest 90 seconds in Major League Baseball, because I want to let a few more people join our live show before we dive into it, I want to start with this. Is this the most open year that you can remember, with who has a chance at the playoffs, who has a chance at looking like someone who can make a run here in the postseason and be a world champion at the end of October? Because this feels like one of the more open seasons we've seen in a long time.
I'll start out. For me,
Yeah, go ahead.
For me, it definitely does. I mean, coming into the year, we thought teams like Dodgers, Yankees, and Mets had almost super teams, but the Yankees and Mets have been extremely vulnerable the past couple of weeks and are right now fighting for a playoff spot. And the Dodgers look good, but the Dodgers haven't exactly been, the super team that everybody thought. The best team in baseball right now is the Brewers, and to be 100% honest, they give me a lot of 2021 Giants vibes. And I'm
Interesting.
not sure if they're ready for a World Series yet, but it definitely seems very open. Like AL, the Blue Jays look very good at the AL right now, but just as a whole, there's probably 5 to 10 teams I think could make the World Series right now, and it might be more than that.
Yeah, I mean, you got a Red Sox team that's 10 games over 500, very well could make a push here late season. They have the arms to do it. They made moves to do it. The Tigers, who weren't playing well, have started playing better. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
I mean, look, no 100-game winners last year in 2024. Let's remember that, right? So there is a level of, for whatever reason, and I'm not even sure I can put my finger on exactly what it is. I have some guesses, but it does seem that the level of competitiveness the gap is closing a little bit more. I think this is also showing exactly what we talked about at the beginning of the year, which is regardless of what super team you may think people have put together, this is still baseball and anybody can win any given day. And injuries will always be a part of and affect this game. And we've seen that throughout the year. There's been many teams that we expected to play much better than they did, derailed by injuries. The two that come to mind immediately are the Orioles and the Braves, right? These are things that you can't control. And I think the big piece for me is we're going to start seeing teams have their blips on the radar, and then I think it's just the following year they're going to come back and still be competitive. A couple teams have done some interesting things to not close this gap, but the divisions that we expect to be close on a regular basis are shaping up to do exactly that. The American League Central, one that we'll talk a little bit about today, does exactly that every single year in some fashion with 3 teams competing. The AL East is looking the same way. The AL West is looking the same way. I think that we're going to be in for this for the foreseeable future simply because of the direction baseball is going, and that's something we can elaborate on later.
Yeah, and I think when you really start looking at the wild card race, and I said this to you last night, and I don't say this in a way of like they're still in the hunt, the Orioles are still less than 10 games out of the wild card race. Again, I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that the next 35 games even give them a remote chance at a playoff spot, but barring an insane run, the fact that they are still within what feels like striking distance. Now they have no bullpen, and there's a lot there that comes after the trade deadline as things start to separate quickly. But it just tells you how close things really are when you start looking at things that teams did at the trade deadline with the Twins selling a ton of players. The Rays have gone through their ups and downs. They're 5.5 games out of a wild card. That's one of the most volatile teams in baseball that could go on a 10-game win streak like that. considering some of the arms they still have available. Shane Baz hasn't thrown great, but he very well could come back and throw well again. So, yeah, it's a wide open race, and we're going to talk about some of these teams. But for the folks that are on the live, we are going to dive into the fastest 90 seconds in Major League Baseball to give you a rundown of what is going on across the league. And here we go. Jackson, you got the timer ready? We're timing it this week?
Yeah, we are.
Let's go, baby.
Is it 90
We
seconds?
are about to get going. Start the timer when I start talking. And here we go. We're going to start with the AL East, the Toronto Blue Jays, leading it by 5 games. The Red Sox game and a half up on the wild card. And it does not look like the Toronto Blue Jays are slowing down anytime soon. Now 20 games over 500, 6-4 in their last 10. The Tigers starting to come alive again, just as the Guardians were coming up close behind them. 6.5 games behind Detroit. The Royals, the Twins, starting to slow down and fall behind, but the Royals still only 4 games out of a wild card spot. Into the AL West, the Astros clinging to a lead, and this is not what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing the Astros being the one chasing down the Rangers or the Mariners. So we're on the flip side of it this year, and the Mariners are trying to chase down the Astros. Mariners 2.5 games up on the wild card, 8-2 in their last 10. Lost the last 2 against Baltimore, looking to bounce back here against a struggling New York Mets team. And that's where we go next, to the NL East. The Mets 1-9 in their last 10, losers of 2 straight, 64-57. 5 games back of the Phillies, who are starting to pull away. Losers of their last 3, playing against the Nationals this weekend. The Marlins, Braves, and those Nationals slowly fading out of the division. Into the NL Central, the Milwaukee Brewers are about as red hot as it gets. 12 straight, 10-0 in their last 10. 22 games over 500. They're playing against Cincinnati, who had an 8-1 lead that has very quickly evaporated and has now turned into an 8-6 lead. The Brewers, bases loaded in the top of the 4th, looking to put a hurting on Cincinnati. Cincinnati only a half game out of the wild card spot, looking to grab one for themselves. And into the NL West, San Diego Padres now have a 1-game lead up on the LA Dodgers, who are struggling to find something out of their bullpen. Still 15 games over 500, 4 games up on the wild card. The Diamondbacks, the Giants, and of course the Rockies slowly falling further and further out of contention. The Rockies still working towards the goal of minus 420 run differential, currently sit at 332 runs differential. Okay. There it is. How we do, Jackson? What did we get to? How long was it?
2 minutes, 25 seconds.
Like I said, the fastest 90 seconds in Major League Baseball. And there you have it. The Brewers have now tied it up. It is 8-2.
Killed it. Wow.
Thank you.
All right, maybe we just talk about the Brewers for the rest of the night.
That was awesome. That was fantastic.
Well done.
For those of you who are joining the live show, expect that every single week. That might be my favorite thing I've ever done in my life, just in general. That was phenomenal. No, I think the Brewers are actually a good place to start, and I actually want to talk a little bit less about their winning streak, because the winning streak is great, and I'm happy that they're winning a ton of games, and you guys know how I feel about Pat Murphy and what he's doing to kind of create a culture that's driving the winning streak. I want to talk about Mizorowski, and Jacob Mizorowski is an elite arm. The stuff is disgusting. Throwing a slider the pace of a fastball and a cutting fastball is not fair. And then throwing a fastball remotely over the plate at the rate that he throws it is disgusting. But I will say this. Teams are figuring out ways to get on, figuring out ways to put the ball in play against him. And this is a team, he faced the Reds again tonight through a little more than an inning, who did that to him. They put the ball in play. They forced the Brewers to play defense. This is the kind of ball that Tito's teams will always play. That's why they're a half game out of the wild card spot in the NL. But the fact that you bring Mizorowski back from a slight injury and say, we're only going to let you throw X amount, is so against You said this to me earlier, Ryan. It's so far against the way that he was raised to throw the baseball. And it's not necessarily helping his growth as a pitcher or as a player. And I think the likelihood is you're working towards further and maybe even more catastrophic injury, doing that with a guy whose movements, his abilities are so highly volatile. Jackson, I know Ryan and I have already talked about this, so I kind of want to hear your thoughts on the matter. When it comes to bringing guys back from injury, do you sit more in the camp of giving them a slow burn back, or do you sit more in the camp of trying to create a scenario where you say to them, go give me as many as you can. I'm not pulling you out of the game until I can tell that I need to pull you out of the game. Or, hey, go throw 2 innings and blow it out because that's all you're getting tonight.
I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think it just depends on the case. For the Mizorowski situation, I think a little bit they need to let him eat a little bit. I mean, if you're going to be in the boat of, like, go give us 3 innings as hard as you can, just make him a reliever at that point. Because, like, at that point, he's just going to be a reliever throwing as hard as he can. And when it comes to, like, him getting hit a lot, the stuff is electric, but what we're seeing in the MLB right now is velo not playing as well. My perfect example of this is a guy like Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens could have gotten drafted and said, I'm going to just throw fastball, slider hard and see what happens. But he has a 6-7 pitch mix now and has learned how to pitch differently while also still throwing 100. I think we're going to start seeing that a lot more from guys who have that high velo fastball as a starter, but also throwing 7 or 8 pitches.
Well, a guy that, and I said this to Ryan the other day, like a guy that I think sits in this category of used to throw harder, doesn't throw as hard anymore, and because of his mix, velo definitely doesn't work, is a guy like Luis Castillo, right? Luis Castillo is not throwing 97, 98 anymore, and Luis Castillo doesn't have a lot of soft stuff that moves a bunch of different directions. And so the difficulty when you get in that position and you're, throwing a lot of firm pitches, that's really easy for guys in the big leagues to start to turn around and hit. I mean, listen, if a guy like Lourdes Gurriel Jr. can hit a 105-mile-an-hour fastball out to left center, pull side, I don't know what more you need to tell you can't just throw as hard as you want. If somebody threw 120, another hitter would find a way to catch up to it. It's just timing for these guys. And these guys are the best in the world at timing up fastballs.
I really want to take a step back, too, and help everybody understand our thought process about this 2 to 3 innings of him going out there and blowing out his fastball velocity. So when you think about it from a baseball perspective, for many of you out there who may have played at a high enough level, you have an understanding, especially if you pitched, that when you're told this is how many innings you're going to go, this is how many pitches you're going to go, you will innately go into a game intensity that puts you in a spot where you are probably going to allow your tank to empty, especially a lot quicker than it might empty in other scenarios. And I think that's really what we're getting at here. The other piece for me with Mizorowski is so far this year in AAA, he's averaged right around 5 innings per start. He's had 13 games, 63.1 innings. I believe the one additional game that was not a start was part of this most recent rehab. So the big piece that I get at here with Mizorowski is simple. It goes back to something Jack Wilson talked about on the podcast. We are no longer conditioning players to be able to go 5 to 7 innings, which was a requirement for the longest time in baseball. And for me, I think that's the biggest thing that scares me here with Mizorowski is I understand being careful, but you can easily be careful to a fault. We've seen it happen with a lot of different players. And what's happening for me, or what I'm concerned is going to happen with Mizorowski, is they're going to condition his arm for 3 to 4 innings to go out there and get it done. But again, at that point, you're no longer, in my opinion, regardless of how good he is and how good his stuff is, and how well he's held up in the past, going 5+ innings, you're no longer conditioning him for that. He's not being prepared for that, and he's not ready for that. So you're going to go out there and you're going to ask him to throw 5 to 6 innings in a huge playoff game here down the stretch. And those last 2 innings are potentially actually putting his arm in more jeopardy. That's what scares me with Mizorowski. I love the talent. The extension that he throws with and as hard as he throws is ridiculous. And he's going to continue to improve as a pitcher. But you have to allow him and there has to be some level of risk involved, or he's never going to be conditioned to throw 5.2 to 6.2 innings. It is kind of the middle ground for me.
Yeah, it's so fascinating how much the decision making gets ratcheted up when a guy has such electric stuff, because it's almost like we know the I don't want to say the likelihood, but the potential for someone to get injured when you're throwing as hard as he is or you're spinning it as much as he is goes through the roof. But then I feel like we maybe overthink it, right? Like if a guy was throwing 94 and he had a little bit of shoulder inflammation, what would we do? We'd take a rest. We'd make sure we got MRIs. We work down the inflammation. We get him back. We use the minor leagues to build him back up. And then he comes back when he's ready to get on the mound and say, go make your start. Go throw the ball. Go give us as many as you can give us. And then the guy gets to be a pitcher and he says, all right, I'm going to try and make this outing, last 9 innings. And then he gets through 2 innings and he says, all right, let's get to 6. And then he gets to 6, and it's really in the 6th when he's using his arm and his body at its most, I guess, greatest extent, because he's really got to get over the hump to get through that 6th inning. We're not seeing that anymore because that's not how guys throw today. But I know there are guys who do go through that path. Shane Bieber's a great example of this. Shane Bieber coming back from injury, needed to go on another rehab, goes and does his rehab, comes back. What is Shane Bieber doing in rehab? He's conditioning to go deeper in games. He threw today in Buffalo, he threw 7 innings. Because the Blue Jays want him to come up, and they want to just say to him, go make your start and throw 7 innings for us. But we're not doing that with guys like Mizorowski because the stuff is so electric, and it's like, let us get as much out of this as we can, because it may go downhill quick, and it is what it is, and then we'll then give him the long process to get to work back. But I agree with you, Jackson. If we're at a point where we're breathing down the neck of playoffs, let him get to a point where you can say, go let it eat, go be a back-end bullpen guy, go do your thing, and then be a dog when you come back next year as a starter, and we have no limitations on how you work yourself through a ball game.
I've always loved the idea of guys that talented pitching out of the bullpen early in their career. We see it at the college game a whole lot more. Freshmen coming in. Hagen Smith was coming out of the bullpen his freshman year at Arkansas. We see it a whole lot more at those big schools. Freshmen coming in that are studs, that have the stuff, that they're going to be relievers and learn how to pitch. Gage Wood, another one, another Arkansas guy, was in the bullpen his first 2 years, didn't really become a starter until this year. And I've always loved that track of development more because it helps guys learn how to pitch, and then you can transition them into starting. I've always loved that. I think it works good in the college game as well.
So I want to actually give the counterpoint to that, and my counterpoint's pretty simple. Is I look at a guy like Mizorowski, who was averaging over 5 innings per start at the minor league level. There is doing the opposite to players' conditioning, right? So my opinion of that too is it means you should probably ramp him up that way prior to him coming up if that's what you want to do. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And then they go through a reconditioning program in some way, shape, or form with knowledge that these guys are going to be starters or looked at as starters the following year. But if that's the case, and if that's what we want to do with Mizorowski, which I don't totally disagree with you, then why are we going to build him back up to go this weird 3 to 4 inning distance that is not a common thing that guys do? Right, I think for me, this is part of the stuff epidemic that we are currently in. I think everything that we have and all the technology we have is going to help us allow pitchers to be as good as they have ever been. But as we focus on stuff, it also allows us as a human race to make more mistakes as we try to figure out how to properly build up and utilize these numbers for people, right? Because just because we know Mizorowski's stuff is that much better doesn't mean we should have him not throw it as much, right? We know it could cause more strain, but he's also a one of one. We can't treat him like he's somebody else. And if he's been able to go 4 to 5 innings, and that's what we want out of him, we need to be willing to condition him to do that. And if he gets hit around, guess what? He comes out at 3.2. He comes out of today 1.2, right? That's what it is. That's part of baseball. But I worry about the reconditioning. That's my only counterpoint.
Yeah, it's it's hard when you start to look at the way it's gone for other guys that do have the electric stuff and the way that teams have handled it. I go back even as far as Steven Strasburg with the Nationals, right? For a long time there, it was like, oh, he's on a pitch count. Oh, he's on a pitch count. Oh, he's on a pitch count. Well, what's he going to do? He's going to use his nastiest stuff and throw as hard as he can until he hits the pitch count. And then he knows he's done for the day. And I mean,
maybe two maximum total seasons with no pitch count.
Right.
And one of them was his by far healthiest season of his entire career.
Right. Because the way that a pitcher handles that effort is totally different. Now, the only other counterpoint I will say to you, Jackson, is that very rarely with these premier arms or these guys that got drafted as relievers, they got drafted to be a starter, teams are going to have them go out there and try and be a starter. That being said, there is a way to work them into opportunity where they don't have to be. I do like the idea that as you get deeper towards the postseason, leveraging one of those guys out of the bullpen and saying, it's kind of a make or break, throw you into the fire type of thing, but that's what we do here, and you've got the stuff to do it. So if you just throw your stuff, nobody's seen it before, this could be an advantage to us. Right? So that's the flip side. Now, that could also fall flat on its face because a guy could be totally overtaken by the moment. You have to set a roster for the playoffs, and you don't want to be down a bullpen arm. So you got to give it a chance, but nothing pitching in the regular season is going to be even close to that opportunity. So there's so many different ways to go about it, and it's such a hard, decision to make. But Mizorowski has the stuff to be an ace for that ball club, and I would love for him to be the ace of that ball club. But right now, what they're doing is not leading to health long term, and that's also what makes an ace an ace. Because the best ability is availability.
We will find out down the road where this goes, right?
Sure.
I think that's the other piece, too, here, is we could look at this 3 years down the road and find out that Milwaukee did everything that they should have done. And maybe we're wrong here. But I think it will be interesting to see what happens because, again, conditioning. I love that point from Jack Wilson that he made on the podcast with us. If you haven't listened to that episode, I highly recommend going about it. I'm mentioning this again for a third time. What people forget is there's other countries whose baseball teams are very good. The NPB, a group that has won the World Baseball Classic that they put together on multiple occasions, the conditioning of which they put young people's arms through is what allows them to stay healthy on a more regular basis and throw deeper into games. We are currently more worried about how hard you throw and what your spin rate is than conditioning your arm to be able to last a long load.
Not only conditioning your arm, but like teaching how to pitch. Like, I think the fundamentals of pitching of, like, obviously understanding soft away, hard in, understanding when to double up pitches and what that means and what that looks like, knowing what types of spots you want to hit. But I don't think we're very good at the highest level with the most elite stuff at pitchability. I think when guys have less than elite stuff, they're far better at pitchability. Kind of have to be. When you look at a guy like Mizorowski, tonight he walks 3, gives up 4 hits, ends up getting the line for 5 earned runs. To me, it's like, I don't care about the 4 hits or the 5 earned runs. The only thing I care about is that he walked 3 guys. I don't even care about the pitch count within an inning in the third. I care about the walks because the walks are the one thing that he can control. He can't control if guys bloop hits off him. He can't control if guys take good swings on good pitches. But he can control putting the ball in a place where the umpire can call it a strike, and he can do it with multiple pitches. Otherwise, he wouldn't be at this level. And I think finding a better way to start commanding your stuff, which comes with not letting it eat right out of the gate and finding a way to establish some stuff. Listen, if you can establish stuff not at its best level in the first, second, and third inning, the fourth, fifth, and sixth, you get to actually have some liberties with your stuff. You can miss and still get away with it because guys are thinking at the plate. You can miss and get away with it because umpires are starting to give you some edges because you've already shown that you're purposefully throwing the ball where you want to throw it. It's not the style of game that we see from the league's highest arms, and it drives me crazy. It's my soapbox rant real quick.
But a good example, Jackson, I want you to be able to speak on this too, is look at what we're seeing from Jacob deGrom this year. Jacob deGrom has purposely taken off miles per hour and the need to throw as hard as humanly possible, and he's putting up numbers as good or close to as good as what he was doing in his prime, and the number keeps moving down. 10-5 ERA under 3. His metrics, when you look at him on Baseball Savant, are excellent. So I really think he's a great example of the recognition that staying healthy and pitching the right way when you already have elite stuff may be taking a minor tick off of the elite stuff that you have in order to be a pitcher. The best people that we watched growing up, the Kershaws, the Verlander, the Scherzers, always threw harder in the last 3 innings of their outing. It was a build-up process for them. They were always around the zone, placing pitches where they wanted to. So we're in this mix. Again, the numbers are really captivating at the current moment. And Jackson, you work with numbers every single day to help guys have better stuff. So I do want you to weigh in on this.
The other thing I want to say real quick about DeGrom, for those that feel like pitching while not throwing your hardest has any sort of change in striking guys out, DeGrom's on pace for 220 strikeouts this year if he makes all of his next however many starts till the end of the season. Like, DeGrom is absolutely, I mean, he's pitching tonight, and I think he's already pitching well, right? Like, there's a level here at which, like, Jacob DeGrom is having one of his best seasons we've seen in maybe 5 or 6 years. This is like going back into like mid-prime, right? I mean, this is a level that we have not seen of him in a long time, and dare I say, potentially looking to steal an AL Cy Young. But go ahead, Jackson.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I think we've had a problem with these guys who were prodigies early. A Mizorowski who's been throwing that hard forever. People telling them they have MLB stuff right now and they don't work to get stuff better. I'll bring it up again and again. The exception to the rule is Paul Skeens right now. Paul Skeens throws 99 as an average fastball and only throws it 38% of the time because he mixes in 6 other pitches. Paul Skeens knows if he goes out there and throws 99, 60% of the time, he's not Paul Skeens. He is, I think a big reason is he didn't develop the elite stuff until later in his life, until he became at LSU. I'm telling you right now, when he was at Air Force, he had to learn how to pitch, the pitchability. He had to learn how to mix pitches. And I think that's something that we're not doing in the player development side as much, especially with starters. We're telling starters that they have 1 or 2 pitches that are elite and that they're MLB ready. But that's not enough anymore, unless there's very few starters right now who can do that. Hunter Green, Kevin Gausman, off the top of my head, are the 2 guys who are throwing 2
How about
to 3
little Chris
pitches.
Bassett? Chris Bassett throwing a bunch of pitches. Julio Lugo. Seth Lugo throwing a bunch of pitches right to the counterpoint
That
of
would
where you're going.
have been a name from the past. Call you out on that would have been just like Pedro Severino. Well, no, but I mean, you're very right there. You know, and I think also what helped Paul Skeens was he learned pitching from behind the dish just as much as he learned it from on the mound. Right? I mean, that also makes a difference, right? Him understanding from behind the plate what good looks like when he has an opportunity to see what works and what doesn't, and then try and replicate that from the other side, and then developing different pitches, right? And this is a guy who dominated last year in his first season in the big leagues and then went and tried to find more pitches to throw. How can I make hitters think more? So we've been talking about pitchers for a little while now. I want to shift it to hitters, and I want to talk about some guys that are struggling a little bit right now. And one of the guys I wanted to bring up actually has 2 bombs tonight. Francisco Lindor. Francisco Lindor has been having, I don't even know, the struggle of maybe his career right now, the last month or so. And it's not necessarily what we want to see for the Mets. The Mets as a whole are struggling. I was really hoping that getting over the hump of the Pete Alonso home run chase was going to help maybe the whole team start to move in the right direction. Curious your guys' thoughts about what's going on with the Mets, and starting with Francisco Lindor and kind of some of his metrics, how he's been hitting as of late, what your thoughts are, because it's not what we're used to seeing from what I would consider the captain of that team.
Yeah, listen, Lindor is first off human. I want to start there, right? This is very important to me because we do have, and not specifically with this situation, but from an overall standpoint, I like to remind people that like nobody is great at their job 100% of the time, right? There's always adversity. There's always things that you're going to go through. I get how much he gets paid, so nobody wants to hear me say that, but it is the truth of the matter, right? Lindor is currently on a stretch that is his worst stretch, and he's having his worst season since his first season with the Mets, of which he got questioned up, down, left, right, and center about the contract that he just signed to play in New York. Now, here's the big thing that I'll give you with Lindor right now, and that's the fact that his power numbers are still playing at a very similar rate to what they did over the last 2 seasons that were more of what we're used to seeing from Lindor. The doubles are down a little bit, but there's a high likelihood Lindor squeezes up to that 30 home run mark again, because I do believe he is going to get a little bit hotter here down the stretch and be playing some pretty good baseball, potentially expected to going into the playoffs. At the current moment, he's got a 113 WRC plus and a 327 WOBA, which puts him 17 points higher than the average player in 2024. Right now, I think you're just seeing a Mets team that is trying to figure out how to get themselves out of a hole, right? The top 4 hitters on that roster at the current moment, in Alonso, Nimmo, Soto, and Lindor, are all struggling at the same time, right? No slumps, technically speaking. From a statistical standpoint, people will tell you that they're not real. As somebody who played the game on a regular basis and does still love stats, both being hot and both being in a slump are real. However, you're going to regress back towards your mean. And to me, this is another just bump in the road for the Mets. There's a high likelihood that we're going to actually see them slumping right now at the correct time. Because guess what, guys? It's not October. That's the biggest thing that matters for the Mets. As long as they find their way in, and this is the downturn for them, I think that offense is going to be just fine. Lindor hitting 2 home runs tonight is a big boost to his current situation. I don't think we have much to worry about here with the Mets.
No, Soto also hit a bomb tonight. That's his 30th of the year. For everybody that was worried that Juan Soto wasn't playing well and wasn't worth the money that he got, I don't know a lot of other teams that have 30 home run hitters, but he's on one of them. It's only his 3rd time in his career hitting 30-plus home runs. Feels like not a bad year for the Mets, huh?
Soto's turning it around a little bit too, just in case anybody was curious. He has 11 for his last 37 over his last 10 games, 4 home runs, which does not include tonight. Again, bump in the road. 8 walks to 10 strikeouts in that time period. Believe it or not, Soto's actually stolen 3 bases throughout those last 10 games prior to tonight. Guys, this is baseball. We regress towards the mean, no matter if we're playing better or we're playing worse. We have a big enough sample size to know what this guy's going to do, in my opinion.
Jackson, you got any thoughts on Lindor or anything within the Mets? I wanted to just kind of hit on a couple of these teams that are struggling right now, because it's not a great time to do it, but we're still sitting in the dog days of summer. There's still plenty of time for the Mets to start moving in the right direction again.
Looking into Lindor, I'm kind of looking at just his advanced stats right now. The ground ball rate's up 7% from last year. The air rate, which is fly balls plus line drives plus pop-ups, down 7%. The barrel rate's down 5%. The solid contact rate is down a little bit as well. It looks like to me not pulling the ball or not putting the ball in the air as much, not hitting as many line drives, and just not catching enough barrels. I haven't looked into his swing that much. I don't know exactly what he's doing differently. Could just be a pitch selection thing. But I know Lindor, he's been doing it so good for so long that he's a guy who's proven that he's going to figure it out. He's going to figure out how to hit. He's going to figure out how to come up in the big clutch moments.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the moment's maybe just not big enough for him yet. I think the season's going to get to a point where it will be big enough, and the man will just start drilling balls, which feels a little bit like what tonight is, right? You get a refresh on a new series, playing against a tough team in Seattle, at home, an opportunity to kind of make a statement and say we're still here, and it feels like that's what the Mets are doing. They're up 6-4 right now in the 5th. On the flip side of that, a team that's been playing much better baseball in the second half, and a guy who has been knocking the cover off the ball is the Red Sox, and Roman Anthony looks pretty good right now. Looks like he's earned that contract that he just got. I think a lot of people maybe expected there to be a slight downturn after receiving a contract like that, a little bit of maybe some pressure, some expectations. It's pretty fun to watch Roman Anthony take at bats. Pretty fun to watch this guy hit.
I equate everything back to daily life for all of us. Did anybody expect when Roman Anthony got to the absolute pinnacle of his career, the place where he will now be for at least, if I remember the number again, 9 years with the options.
It's 8 or 9 years, something like that.
Did any of us expect that moving and making the largest jump, in my opinion, in all of sports from a levels perspective, for him to immediately be himself? For me, the answer is no. But we're looking at a guy now who's already slashing 277, 396 on base percentage, and 225 plate appearances, 396. He's not even used to the level yet, and he's slugging 436. Roman Anthony, truly, what is amazing to me, the numbers he is putting up do look like a guy who is a Juan Soto archetype player. I don't know how else to put it. His patience at the dish and his pitch selection already are extremely
15%
impressive.
walk rate since July 1st.
And this can't come as a surprise, because we heard so much about him over the last year and a half. Plus, from an analytical perspective, and I'm sure Jackson will touch on this, his batted ball metrics are everything you could ever want. They were at the minor league level. They are so far at the big league level. The whiff rate is a little bit higher in the K rate than maybe people expected, but it hasn't been over the last 10. Very excited to see where Roman Anthony's career goes. Flex, I might need to say something negative tonight. All I've been doing is saying positive things about everybody.
I'll give you an opportunity. Don't worry. Roman Anthony since July 1st, 315, 433, 492, a 406 WOBA, and a 159 WRC+. I mean, they as a team are running at this point. It was a little bit of a crawl at first, had some things in their way. They got over some roadblocks. I got to say, I think this is a better team for having traded Rafi Devers away when they did. I think nipping that whole situation in the bud very early on felt like an emotional decision by John Henry and Craig Breslow when it happened, but I think it was one of the best things they could have done. I mean, look at them now, right? There's so much about this team that is so much more focused on the field right now than it felt like it was for a long while before that trade was made. And listen, Jordan Hicks is getting used. Kyle Harrison, his last start down in the minor leagues looked very good, right? There's a couple of pieces here that could be made up. I mean, James Tibbs got traded away. That was fascinating.
But they turned Tibbs into Dustin May, who has already looked better from a pitcher's perspective. But let's flip back to the Devers thing before we start giving people too much credit. I can't really give people credit for a situation they created. That's, I think, the big piece that let's be honest here.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right? During the offseason, Breslow and the entire group, though I don't think they meant to do it, obviously, it wasn't intentional that they thought this was going to happen, but it is still a situation that they did somewhat bring upon themselves, and they did end up quelling, and I would agree with you that it has been a less distracted group. I think the big piece for me is if Dustin May looks like he looked last start with this increased usage of the cutter, of which Bailey and team have already seemingly done a great job of saying, hey man, this is what we're seeing, this is what we like that you throw, and we think if we change mix usage and location, we are going to help you really take the next step. The other piece that I love is that it's also lowering the usage on the one pitch that's going to break him, which is his unbelievable 3,000 plus RPM breaking ball. Right?
Absolutely.
Knocking that usage down a little bit for a guy who has had a lot of elbow issues, I think could really, really help. One of those things where you heard me bitch, moan, and complain about conditioning. That's not something you can condition yourself for when you are spinning it to the rate of which May spins it and with the way the ball comes out of his hand.
Well, and I think working that cutter more consistently off of a really good breaking ball is a much better move because he's gonna get to a point where he's gonna get some disgusting swings off of the curveball, but he's gonna get a lot of Ks looking on that cutter late in the count because he's gonna prove that he's gonna throw both of them at any time he wants, and they're moving in the same direction and they're spinning very similarly, and it's gonna be very hard as the ball's moving away from right-handed hitters for them to make a decision in time. I think using it as a more primary pitch is going to go well for him as long as he continues to throw it hard and consistently and comfortably. Jackson, good to have you back.
He throws his cutter at 91.7 miles an hour, and I'm going to make a comment that Jackson will really, really enjoy. It actually does allow him at some points in time to use it as the quote-unquote baby slider that we see a lot of guys throwing at the current moment. That is such an effective item for him to manipulate and change a little bit to where he actually, instead of having a 4-pitch arsenal, has a 5-pitch arsenal, depending on how he utilizes the pitch. Jackson, can you go into real quick a little bit more about how pitchers nowadays are manipulating one pitch to be something a little bit different at times?
Yeah, especially when we see a guy like that. Typically when we're seeing that, it's with cutter, slider, sweeper stuff because a lot of that can blend a whole lot. We're seeing a lot of guys throw a cutter that might be like 8 IVB, 0 horizontal, and sometimes it'll blend into 5 IVB, 3 horizontal. That might not seem like a whole lot, but if you can do that, take a couple miles off of it, it's a completely different pitch, looks different, feels different. So yeah, we see a lot of that, especially with, like I said, cutter, slider, sweeper.
I wish we could add layman's terms. You're on mute, Ryan, but
yeah,
I'm
good.
Excited to hear your thoughts. I wish we could add a layman's terms subtitle. Whenever Jackson just starts saying all these different IVB, people, I don't think people realize they were coming here for a little bit of a language lesson. But if you had a language barrier there, please direct yourself to the chart that Jackson has been so kind to place up on the screen. What I love when I look at something like this is getting a better understanding of the direction that Dustin May is moving the baseball when he's attacking hitters and the differentiation in the way that he can move the ball at different speeds. Now, it's hard when the only real big differentiation in speeds is a 10-mile-an-hour difference between something that spins one direction. But having a sinker and cutter that can be very similar, going 2 different directions, allows him to work both sides of the plate and work against both sides of the plate against both types of hitters, right-handed and left-handed. Ryan,
so the
now that you're
irony
off
is,
mute, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, the irony is the reason I wanted to bring this up, though, is Jackson made a comment about the induced vertical break and guys who are sitting somewhere between 5 to 8 in their IVB, and then they can drop that down to a 3. Without looking at this chart, because I know Jackson wasn't sitting here looking at it because I'm the one who shared this actually, notice how Jackson was 100% on the money with everything that he said. This cutter is sitting between a 5 and 8 general IVB. It at times is something a little bit lower. This is just showing us that is exactly more than likely what the Red Sox saw in this. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I think analytics are so important, why we want to bring them up to you, is it's not just all about making your stuff move more. It's utilizing analytics and break to talk about how we attack hitters and how we use your arsenal and use your stuff. Again, Jackson wasn't looking at this chart when he said it, and everything that he said is actually displayed right here in Dustin May's chart. And it's another reason why ETSU and the Bucks, shout out to them, are going to be so good next year because they've got a guy like Jackson helping them every day in the bullpen.
Absolutely.
I want to keep moving, and I want to move on to another topic here. And I want to dive into one of the other teams that has been really fascinating in the second half, and I would say probably just a little bit before the All-Star break, but that's the Toronto Blue Jays. And I want to take us all the way back to the offseason, and maybe even a couple off-seasons before. They have been redheaded stepchild, little brother, whatever you want to call them, to all the big spenders in baseball. You have the looming Vladimir Guerrero free agency, the looming Bo Bichette free agency, the older arms in your bullpen, the older arms in your rotation. And the conversation consistently becomes, well, they have the team, they have the talent, but how good are they really going to be? I'll tell you what, things are going well in the Great White North. Guys are playing some ball. Guys are doing a very good job of playing their part. I'll give you a great example. Ernie Clement. Ernie Clement, not a power hitter, not one of their sluggers, not the guy that you're expecting to be top 6 in the lineup and every single day that's the guy we're riding on. But I'll tell you what Ernie Clement's been is really, really, really stable. Offensively, slightly less so defensively, but he has been stable in a position that's been a little bit fluctuating because Andres Jimenez has not been healthy, a piece that would have been extremely helpful to this team. Another guy that we didn't necessarily expect to see an unbelievable season from, but he's been really fantastic, is George Springer. Making up for Anthony Santander not being healthy and being in the lineup and being a power bat for them. Vlad Guerrero definitely wasn't what you expected him to be at the beginning of the season. But now as we get towards later in the season, he's been absolutely unconscious since the All-Star break. So you start to look at the way this team has formed. Barrios' home run numbers are down. We talked about it last week. Gossman, same old stable arm, chewing up innings. Bassett, been exactly what we expected him to be. Throws a ton of pitches, keeps you in the game. And then you start to look at some of the other arms that they've been able to throw and they've been able to piece together, and then they go get a couple of guys at the trade deadline. Shapiro and team up in that front office are finding a way to make it work, and I think this is the start for them. This is not a one and done. Regardless of what happens with Bo Bichette, I love the way they drafted. I love the way that they are putting these teams together. They're clearly showing you they have depth because injury is absolutely something they have dealt with this year. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the Blue Jays because I don't think it's out of the question that the Blue Jays are going to continue to pull away and start to run away with this division, and they're going to force the Red Sox and the Yankees to have to maintain their spot in the wild card.
Yeah, they've been absolutely awesome to watch this year, and what you talk about, guys stepping up who you didn't expect. The one name I want to bring up, he has truly one of my favorite individual pitches in baseball, reliever Brendan Little. His curveball is filthy. In an age and time where we don't see a lot of curveballs anymore, he's throwing his at 50% of the time. It's like a sharper curveball, 80 miles an hour, only -7 IVB, which isn't as much as we see in other curveballs. But this is a pitch with a 56% whiff against it, which is unbelievable. I think that it's either top 5 in the majors, if not top 3, one of the best whiff pitches in baseball. He's been unreal for that Toronto bullpen, and like Flack said, he was not a guy with high expectations coming into the year.
You know, I think you talked about a lot of guys who are important from a bats perspective, Flax, but I think there's 2 names that you left out that are super important, and I'm glad you left them out for me. I mean, the first one is the one and only, I hope he's the biggest Star Wars fan in the world because I can't stop calling him Boba Fett, but Bo Bichette is back. In a contract year, he's leading all of Major League Baseball with 148 hits to his name this year. He's looking at 16 home runs at the current moment, which is putting him on pace to have one of his better long ball seasons. We're looking at a guy who is exactly who we thought and knew he was for a very long time. And
they are who we thought they were.
Exactly. This shouldn't shock anybody. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably Bo Bichette because he's a dog. He's got a WOBA of 344 at the moment, which puts him well above the Major League average player. A guy who's going to be looking at a big contract, and I think Shapiro and team are going to be looking to figure out how to potentially keep him around, if at all possible. I think it's going to be extremely difficult, and honestly and sadly don't believe it will happen. But can we talk about the emergence of Addison Barger? Addison Barger has been a massive lift that I don't think many people had on their radar to be a guy who is going to put up a WOBA of 341. He's hit 18 home runs already in 98 games at the major league level. This is a guy who's looking like a 25 home run guy this year in an abbreviated season and a potentially 30-plus home run guy for a long time. Absolutely demolishes the ball against right-handed pitching. His walk rate and his K rate are a little bit lopsided compared to maybe what you'd want, but Barger's come not out of the woodworks because he was a guy who had some great power seasons at the minor league level, but he truly has found his stride here in 2025, and I expect that to continue moving forward.
Addison Barger swings. I don't even know how to describe. Like, it is. If you want to see a swing that's meant to do damage, like, watch Addison Barger swing the bat. He's 93rd percentile in bat speed, 75 miles per hour. Amazing. But then you couple that with 52% hard hit rate, a 13% barrel rate, good for 82nd percentile, a 92 mile per hour average exit velo. I mean, if he can get to a place where the K rate goes down a little bit, which to me would just be the chase rate going down. The chase rate right now, 32%, almost 33%. Good for 20th percentile in baseball. If we could get that to come backwards just a hair, you're talking about a guy who is going to put up some obscene numbers. And another guy that got back that I also forgot to mention, Dalton Varsho. Unbelievable, by the way. Dalton Varsho, if he could play a full healthy season with the numbers that he's put up just in the short amount of time he has been on the available roster this year, he would have been playing one of his best seasons of his entire career. 12 home runs in 34 games played. His highest season was 27 in 151 games played. He is absolutely demolishing the ball.
Let's also not forget to talk about Dalton Varsho's defense, the versatility that he brings on a regular basis to
former catcher.
the diamond. He's a guy who, exactly, and he's a legitimate catcher too, right? This is not like, oh, he's back there as an emergency guy. Varsho can legitimately play behind the plate. And you're looking at a guy who, in the outfield, has a 6 OAA this year when he's been healthy. He's a legitimate Gold Glove outfielder as well. We've seen him make some outstanding plays already. Like another boost to a Blue Jays team that is really pushing. Look, the back end of the bullpens looked a little bit better as well. Jeff Hoffman, 3 Ks the other day and a save. I really think that they're clicking at the right time. The question for me is what I question every year for each team. Every single team will always have a downturn. The question is, does it come at the wrong time? Which is the comment I made with the Mets. I actually think this is the right time. You'd rather the end of the summer be when you're struggling, because guess what? Baseball is meaningful, but it's not as meaningful as it will be here as we roll into the end of August and September. Flax, before we do anything else, could you give everybody an update on what the Milwaukee Brewers are currently doing to the Cincinnati Reds?
It's the Christian Yelich game. Christian Yelich now has 2 home runs, a double, a single. They were once down 8-1. It is the power of the uke. That's what it is at this point. He's using a bat that is a tribute to the uke, and they are now leading the Reds 9-8 with an opportunity to win their 13th straight game. But you know what? We are only in the 6th inning, I believe. So plenty of time for things to go a bunch of different ways.
I got some.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, the Brewers are absurd. What do you got
Some
for us,
more
Jackson?
baseball also going on right now. Hurts and Waldrop, first-round pick from the Braves. 6 innings of 2 hit ball, no run, 7 Ks. 3 appearances now on the year since he got called back up. 1.02 ERA. He has been gross. Just going to point out his season debut was at Bristol. I was there watching it. So, not going to say it's because...
That was the difference.
Not going to say it's because of me, but it's because of me.
No, I am. It is. It is because of you. I'll say that.
Let's pivot real quick. Our good friend Baseball Today, who's in the chat, if you don't know his content, excellent content on Baseball Twitter. Make sure you go follow him and say hi from us over here at Baseball Unstitched. He is mentioning too, his Dodgers have a huge series,
massive
this
series
weekend,
right now. Yeah,
and it's one of the most fun series in all of baseball. If you have not had the opportunity to watch a Dodgers Padres series in this era of baseball, you've been missing out. Highly, highly suggest it. We've got a great matchup tonight, the one and only Clayton Kershaw being on the hill for the Dodgers. I think that's going to be a really fun series, guys, because the Padres are playing some great baseball. The Dodgers trying to find their way out of a little bit of a skid in the back end of the bullpen.
Yeah, there has not been a lot of great outings from the back of the bullpen. That's probably the best way I could say it. That's the nicest thing I could say. Behind the Mets, they have blown some really tough leads within the last week and a half. I want to say they're near the bottom in bullpen ERA as a whole this year. Now, again, they had plenty of time where they were missing some of their top guys. That's been a struggle for them. But some of the guys that you would expect to have maybe picked up the slack, not doing it. And I remember back when we were in the offseason, everybody said, how many bullpen guys does this team need? How many players does this team need? They've dealt with a ton of injuries. But I will say this for their offense. Mookie's starting to hit again. Freddie's starting to find a little bit of a stroke. Shohei is Shohei. Like, there is a level here at which this team is fine. But again, we're going to go back to something that our friend Jack Wilson said. And I think this is the most opportune time if there ever has been. Why is Shohei not your closer? Right?
It's really, really hard to not justify that situation with, again, we said it earlier, though, if you're going to be a starter, the goal is to build you back. And to be fair to the Dodgers, they have built him back more innings per start that he's had this year. So
I do like the way they built him back.
That's all I'm getting at. So to me, they're looking like a team that could have Ohtani again starting games and going 5 to 6 innings when the baseball is at its most important time period. I also don't disagree with you, though. We're talking about a guy who would automatically be a top 3 closer in all of baseball.
Absolutely.
I think the big reason right now is with him coming back from an injury is the controllability of when he's pitching. Right now, with when he's coming back, it's easier for them to control when he's pitching as a starter. As a reliever, it's not as controllable. If I had to bet, that's my reason as why he's starting, and that's why I would probably keep him in the starting role. But once you get to October, I think there's definitely conversations that need to be had on where he's going to be in that rotation or in the bullpen.
And I mean, listen, it's tough, right? You've got Bruce Gratterall, Michael Kopech, Tanner Scott, Brock Stewart, Kirby Yates, all on the IL out of that bullpen right now. There is no world in which we sit here and say, they're not in a tough position. But we have seen the likes of Anthony Banda, Blake Trinan, Ben Kasparius all throw well. Now, Alex Vesia has been solid, but we have seen these guys throw well.
2.76
Alexis
ERA
Diaz.
for Vesia.
What is it?
2.76 ERA for Vesia. He's been really good this year.
Right. Vesia's been great. But there are other options, but it's hard to move to other options when you have guys in the bullpen that have previously showed you they can do it. And I think that's where Dave Roberts is at and why he's between such a rock and a hard place right now. Like, how do you not keep giving the ball to the guys that have done it for so long for the last couple of years for you pretty well, to not say, like, they're going to figure it out. And when they figure it out, they're going to be great. But I know Baseball Today just threw it into the chat, and it was definitely something I had thought about and I had seen. Bobby Miller, who hasn't shown his stuff as a starter right now this year, might be one of those options where you say, we don't need to control your timing of when you get to throw. But if you want to throw in the big leagues right now, it's going to be a 2-3 inning stretch out of the bullpen because we know you can do it and get through a lineup once, maybe even twice if needed. And your stuff is definitely electric enough and you have enough pitches. It feels similar to like a Walker Buehler situation down the stretch last year and in other points in his career where you start to use the stuff a little differently because you get used a little differently as a pitcher, but the stuff is already good enough and still good enough to be able to be successful in that role. I like that as an option. I don't disagree. I think the hard thing, like I said, is if you're Dave Roberts or if you're this front office, who do you go away from? And then is it one of the guys who's pitching really poorly who has been that guy for you within a stretch of the past couple of years?
To get some positivity, shout out Alex Vesia. Since he's become a Dodger, There's been a lot of
Love that.
injuries
Love
in that
positivity on
Dodgers
this
bullpen the
podcast.
past couple of years. Since 2022, he had 63 games pitched in 2022, 56 in 23, 67 in 24, 56 already this year, and has consistently been under 3 ERA for most of those years. Vesey has been the shining light in that bullpen the past couple of years. Probably the most consistent arm they've had. If I'm wrong, say another name. But it's been awesome this year. 2.76 ERA. Almost a 4-to-1 K to walk ratio this year. He's been electric. Also, the highest IVB fastball in the majors, averages 22 IVB at only 93.
Yeah,
It makes his fastball look like it's 107 at the top of the zone.
There's not a single pitcher that you'll watch from every single angle of every single stadium where you like watch the fastball and you just go, whoa. Alex Vesia's fastball does, like, you see Alex Vesia's fastball and you're like, oh, okay, because you like it's a little weird. It's not like anything crazy that you think's gonna blow by everyone, but like you start to see it out of his hand and you're like, yeah, I don't know how from the dish you could actually like see that ball comfortably. It gets on you quick because it gets on you as a viewer quick. Ryan, do you have any more thoughts on Los Dodgers?
I think my big thing to finish on with Bobby Miller is again another guy who has really taken a hit from the quote-unquote stuff epidemic, right? He's a guy who we know has crazy good stuff. Now, call it what it is. Jackson can go look himself and confirm this. He throws a dead zone-y fastball, which is one of the things that's the biggest difficulty. He had a negative 10 run value on his four-seam fastball last year. He's got a negative 2 run value in a short stint this year. That's the big piece here, right? 101 doesn't truly matter as much as it used to at the highest level. And as Bobby Miller learns how to pitch, whether it's as a starter or out of the pen, I think he will continue to get better and better. One of the things the Dodgers have proven as an organization is they will find a way to get the most out of your quote-unquote stuff. We have also watched that, unfortunately, lead to a lot of different injuries for many of their players across the board. So as these guys learn to pitch and as these guys continue to learn how to utilize their stuff outside of just making their stuff better, I think that you'll see success. Miller is an example of that. His arm is too good, in my opinion, and what he brings to the table is too good with a 5-pitch mix and some potential adds that could really help him. He's another guy who I think would heavily benefit from a cutter just due to the shape of his stuff from an overall standpoint. So I'd love to see what they do with Miller. I think that's probably my final thought there.
You're one of those guys, just give everybody a cutter.
It's less about giving everybody a cutter, and it's more about that it fits in so many more arsenals that people think, yeah, but I like that comment because I think it's good for us to explain it, right? You're looking at a lot of different guys who could use another glove side pitch. Sometimes I think we focus too much on giving people a slider, a sweeper, or a curveball as an additional glove side pitch. It turns out that manipulating a ball that looks like a fastball on a regular basis gets just as many whiffs or sets up those whiffs that you're looking for. And it's one of the reasons why, going back to Jackson's point, you're seeing guys with electric stuff like Paul Skeens looking for additional pitches to throw.
I will say this. I think that the only hard part for me is that it is a dangerous pitch. There are plenty of guys that have tried it and then dropped it from their arsenal very quickly because it becomes a very hittable pitch if you don't do it correctly. If you do it correctly, I completely agree with you. Just not everybody can spin the ball that way. But real quick, I want to... Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Real quick, that to your point, though, that is the point where I hammer it home. We can't be so worried about getting an extra 1.5 inches on that pitch. That's not what that pitch is about.
No, I agree.
Right? That's not it. The whole point of it is to set up everything else in your arsenal and throw it accurately to make sure that the next pitch that comes at her hand looks like the same thing you just threw, or it's used as an off-pace pitch against your four-seam fastball or sinker because it's hard to tell what's coming out. Again, can't focus so much on getting an extra inch on a pitch every single pitch you add to your arsenal.
No, I agree with that. Now, the only other thing I do want to mention for everybody here listening, watching, as a reminder, if you enjoy the way we talk about baseball, we do have a podcast that we put out on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube every single week. There is a link in the chat to our latest episode. We had the pleasure of interviewing this guy, Jack DeLongshaw, That is actually how you say his last name, even though he agrees Jack DeLongchamps is way cooler. Incredible guest. Such a fun listen. We had a blast talking to him. As you guys can see in his bio, co-host of 11.7. If you follow college baseball, you know who this guy is. Go follow his content. Go follow Pencil Talk. The stuff he does in the college baseball game and the ambassadorship that he has had to grow it to the point that it is now and even further and beyond has been phenomenal. But we got the chance to do an hour with him. If you want to just go listen to the interview and not the full episode, he starts at about the 19-20 minute mark, I believe. It was a ton of fun to chat with him. We will definitely be having him back on. But I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that that was out there, that exists. The link, again, is in chat. But if you can't find it there, it's the latest episode on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube. Please feel free to go subscribe to those channels so you know when the next episodes come up. And please leave a review and a like or whatever it is that they say that you're supposed to do in any of those places. Now that I have put that shameless plug out there for all of you to potentially go enjoy our podcast, I want to do some other updates. Kobe Mayo hit a bomb off Framber Valdez, a guy who I do think will be on the radar for the Orioles as a free agent this year.
The lid is off the hoop.
That's his 5th of the year. He's starting to find a little bit. It's crazy what happens when you actually get to play baseball. And we say this about everybody, and I think it's a great transition into what I wanted to also talk about as a secondary topic tonight, I say secondary, it's probably like our 6th topic, but that's okay. But what I wanted to talk about was we're getting close to August 15th. Are we at August 15th? We are at August 15th. Wow, that's fun. We're at August 15th, which is the day that we now transition into, as long as guys don't get 130 at-bats past this point, they will maintain rookie status. We got a lot of guys that are going to be coming pretty quick. Guys like J.J. Weatherholt, I would assume, are coming up for the Cardinals. Samuel Basayo and Dylan Beavers for the Orioles. The Nationals have anybody left? They've brought up everybody this year. Who do you expect, Ryan?
They're there, is where I'm at.
That's what I thought. They're all there.
You might see a Yoandy Morales cameo coming up here shortly.
Oh, I like that.
Pinckney is going to be a guy who, even in a jammed outfield, may get himself an opportunity. But I got to be honest with you, the most important one is the guy who's up there right now, back healthy, hitting 7th in the lineup tonight, and Dylan Cruz.
Yep, I would agree with you in that. James Wood is finding his stroke again. But throw some names in the chat. I'm curious who you guys are most excited for to start coming up for your teams that maybe are not in the playoff race or that may be coming up in September when the rosters expand as an extra bench player for you. But there's a lot out there, fellas, and these guys are knocking down the door in every organization.
A couple.
And it's been really fun, especially post-trade deadline, seeing some of these guys that are getting their first cracks with a different team that are also playing really well. I saw Leo DeVries hit his first home run as a part of the Athletics organization. Some drafted guys are getting their first opportunities in professional baseball, playing exactly the way we'd expect them to play. Anybody on your guys' radar?
Yeah, for me as a Cardinals fan, JJ's the big one. Been unreal this year. 2 other names I wanted to bring up. Jimmy Crooks has been in the system for a couple years now. Has been in AAA all year as a catcher. He's one of 3 catchers that are top 6 in our system. He's had a really good year this year. His ETA is 2025, so I expect him to maybe get a shot here coming down the stretch. The other name I wanted to bring up is outfielder Nathan Church. Started the year in AA, has made it to AAA right now. So far in 51 AAA games, is slashing 340, 404, 529 slug. Has 7 home runs, 4 triples, 10 doubles. He's an outfielder. He's ranked 14th in the system. Probably should be higher. So Church, Weatherhold, Crooks, and then I'd like to see a couple Quinn Matthews starts as well. He hasn't been.
That was the one I was going to bring up.
He hasn't been unbelievable this year, but the swing and miss stuff is there, and the Cardinals are at the point. Their starting pitching is getting blasted again tonight for the 8th straight week. The starting pitching struggling. So let's have some fun. Let's call some young guys up. See what happens.
I think another couple names that I definitely want to bring up are guys who are having excellent seasons. One of them, if you're bored tomorrow, Nolan McLean will be making his major league debut
Yeah, he is.
for the New York Mets. He has had a spectacular season this year. He had under a 2 ERA in 5 starts at Double-A, is running in 13 starts a 2.78 ERA over 87 innings with 97 Ks, and an opponent's batting average at the AAA level of 185. Very excited to see what he does. Another guy that happens to also be in the Mets system that has been sprinting through the system here in 2025 is Carson Benj. Has slashed excellent over 3 different levels this year: 307, 414, and a 507 slug for a grand total of a 921 OPS. And he's hit 12 home runs and 24 doubles, and 6 triples on the way to those numbers. Absolutely love what I'm seeing from him. Honestly, Flax, you've got a guy in Basayo who I know people are just itching to potentially see at the major league level prior to getting any minor league maximums hit. I think Bubba Chandler is a guy who could potentially be on his way up very soon.
Yeah,
we talked about how
thoughts.
excited we were to see Colson Montgomery get up a little bit earlier than this number as a guy who's raking at the major league level right now. But fun time of year because you're going to see a lot of excellent young players getting an opportunity at the big league level in a shorter stint.
Yeah, I agree. My one knock on Bubba Chandler is he's throwing the right amount of innings. He's striking out what feels like the right amount of guys. He's still walking an insane amount of players. I mean, every outing is 2 to 3 walks. It's not going to play at the next level. A 1.42 whip is not going to play at the next level when your outings are 4 2/3 and 5 1/3 at the minor league level. It just has to be better, and I don't know if this is a situation where I actually feel like the Pirates are holding him back. It feels more to me that they feel he still has something to work on and get better at before he gets to the big league level. However, there is a likelihood that he gets his opportunity this year because he should, because if you're the Pirates, what's the difference? You're going to give him an opportunity and say, this is what it feels like to look up and see three levels of seats, and then you're going to know what it feels like, and then we're going to go back to the minor leagues and we're going to figure out what is going on and why we're walking so many guys. And then we're going to understand how we're going to fix that going into next year, and then he's going to have a really, really good shot at making the club out of spring training, as he should.
I want to give another shout out here to 2022 first round pick of the Cincinnati Reds, Sal Stewart. This kid has been going monster ball at the AAA level in the 24 games that he's gotten to play so far this year. 313, 381, 517 in those. 333, 394, 656 for a 1,050 OPS. In only 24 games, he's already hit 6 home runs, 12 doubles. You're talking about a team in the Reds who do want to be making a push here. This is a bat that could help them in huge ways down the stretch if they can get him up in time and let him adjust.
Yeah. Did you have another one?
Yeah, the last name I want to bring up is a Pirates guy, Hunter Barco, in AAA this year, 15 starts, 3.7 ERA, 67 strikeouts across 58 innings, a little bit higher walks, but better than Bubba Chandler. He's 87th ranked prospect in the majors. That could be another guy we could see.
I think only one more I have on the list that we could potentially see, but there's always a likelihood we don't at all. Bryce Eldridge for the Giants. Just considering the situation that they're in, it might be more likely that we see him as a September call-up when the roster expands a little bit than we see him take somebody's place. Obviously, injury could always be the factor here. But Bryce Eldridge has been knocking down the door this year at the AAA level. He's not hitting phenomenally, but he's putting the ball out of the yard. His K numbers are high, but this is what he does. Strikes out a lot, hits a ton of home runs. It's not where you want to be.
Let's remind people that he's 6'7" and 20 years old. At the
He's a
AAA
massive
level.
human being.
This is a guy who the swing and the miss is relatively understandable for his age at the level he is playing with, and to still have a 802 OPS with 12 home runs over 150 games, over a 40 game span, feels pretty excellent for a guy at that age.
Absolutely. But a true 70 grade power, and it's fun to see. So we're excited. This is the week that we should start seeing moves. We should start seeing guys getting some opportunities. So the only other thing, fellas, I want to do, because the only people who got to see this were our original 11 listeners within the first 15 minutes of the show.
Stop it. No.
So you know what we're going to do
No.
for the other viewers that we have right now is we're going to give you what we like to call the fastest 90 seconds.
Oh,
in Major
okay.
League
I thought you were doing
Baseball.
something different.
No,
You were
we're going to
scaring me.
we're going to give all our
Do you
viewers
know
here
what
the
we did
fastest
on the
90
first live
seconds in Major.
stream in the first couple of minutes? Do you
No,
know
what
what
did I
we
do?
did? On
No,
the
forget
first
it.
ever live stream, we showed my men's league home run. So that's what I thought you were going to do.
God,
That's
no.
not something we needed to do.
Folks, that's
All
a
right.
little conceited of him, no?
That was very.
He just
Let us know
wanted to
in-
bring
let us
up
know in
he
the
had a
chat
men's
if you
league
think
home
that was
run.
conceited.
He just wanted to bring up.
That's
he had
all
a
it
men's
was.
league home
That's
run.
all he wanted to do. Yeah, that's smart. Smart. Without further ado, we are going to take you through what we like to call, as I've said,
2 minutes and 25 seconds last
the
time.
fastest 90 seconds in Major League Baseball. And for those that know, we're getting ready for the fastest 90 seconds in Major League Baseball. And we start with the AL East, where the Toronto Blue Jays hold a 5-game lead, a game and a half up on the wild card for the Red Sox. Man, I'm starting slow. We got to keep moving. Moving on to the AL Central, the Detroit Tigers still cling to a 6.5 lead. Not nearly what it was, but working their way back to 20 games over 500. Cleveland Guardians, though, pushing their way into a wild card. Half a game out. The Royals, Twins, and White Sox slowly fading away. The AL West, the Astros clinging to a lead here against the Seattle Mariners and the Texas Rangers. Don't forget about them, but they're fighting for a wild card spot more than anything. But the Mariners a game and a half back, playing against the Mets right now. Moving into the NL, the Phillies still lead the NL East, ever expanding that lead on the New York Mets, who are 1-9 in their last 10, losers of 2 straight. The Marlins, Braves, and Nationals fading away fast. The Brewers, winners of 12 straight, 10-0 in their last 10. Fighting back against the Reds tonight, now up 10-8 in the 7th inning. The Reds fighting for a wild card spot, half a game back from that wild card spot. And on to the NL West. San Diego Padres have flipped the script on everybody in baseball. Now a full 1-game lead against the Dodgers going into a massive series for the NL West. I stumbled there at the end a little bit, but the Dodgers still have a 4-game lead in the NL wild card. And there we go, fellas. The fastest 90 seconds in Major League Baseball. Jackson, where do we end up on that?
I didn't time that one. You only get one time, one away.
Oh, come on. That was so much faster.
Wow. I'm impressed that you can do that twice in a single day. That was awesome.
You know what's even more impressive is that it actually got better. So maybe we just move it to the end of the show now that we know how this works. For everybody who joined us a little bit late, thank you for joining us. This was the Baseball Unstitched live show every Friday night, 6 Mountain Standard Time, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Everybody, have a good night.